Okay, welcome everybody to the CalGIS Webinar number 3. For those of you who watched the webinar live, you'll notice that my shirt has changed. We've had a few changes here. We had some problems with the recording, and so we're redoing this beginning part. And luckily enough, we're able to get Scott Gregory back online this time, and so we're going to record his portion too. To start with, though, what I'm going to do is go over the preliminaries for the CalGIS conference information so that everybody can hear those if you follow this on the recording. CalGIS is going to be coming up on April 14th through the 16th, 2014 in Monterey, California. The conference is going really well. Things are coming together really nicely. The purpose of these webinars is to give you a little foretaste of what might be happening at the conference, to give you an idea of what CalGIS can do, what can give you, and help build a sense of community in our community in the state. To start with, what we're going to do here is we're going to review this webinar, the upcoming webinar, and then show you how you can get more information about the conference. First of all, Scott Gregory is our first guest on this one. After that, Peter Mason, or Meeson, or Meisen, I can never remember how it's pronounced, and Quentin Gregg from GENI, the Global Energy Network Initiative. The next webinar will be taking place December 13th at 11 o'clock, and that is going to be an interesting webinar. It will be Amy Smith from Fair and Peers who will be talking to us about Python and scripting in the ArcGIS environment. And then our next speaker will be Rob Elkins, who's Esri's desktop product manager, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about ArcGIS desktop and the directions things are going there. If you want more information about the conference, you can go to calgis.org or follow the Twitter hashtag CalGIS, and you can also contact us through email at calgisconference@gmail.com. For the conference schedule coming up, there's going to be it'll be a three-day conference. The first day of the conference is workshop day. There's going to be 3 basic workshops and then some extra meetings. The first workshop will be a marine GIS workshop. That workshop is going to be hosted by the Monterey Bay Area GIS Marine User Group. That group will be the core of the workshop for the day, but we'll be bringing in some additional people, both from the local area and from across the state. Promises to be a very good workshop. You can go on to the calgis.org website to see some more information about that. The second workshop will be an Esri-sponsored workshop. Esri is going to come in and do a day-long set of training workshop for a couple of different topics. We'll give you more information about those topics in December and January. The third workshop will be an open source GIS workshop. That will be, we're particularly looking at the people from Boundless coming in to do a workshop on the OS GeoStack and also the QGIS desktop software. We're also probably going to have some people from Mapbox, maybe a couple others coming in to talk to us about OpenStreetMap and perhaps a couple of additional items on that workshop day. This will be one of those workshops where we ask you to bring your computers. You'll get a flash drive with the software on it, plug it in, and go. That night there'll be, that afternoon there'll be some GIS meetings for the state ERISA chapters, the CGIA Council, and and possibly the State GIS User Group. That's something that's in the works right now. Dinner will be at the Cannery Row Brewing Company. We'll be taking over the whole restaurant for the evening. So it sounds like it's going to be a great evening for us all to get together, socialize a little bit at the beginning of the conference. On Tuesday, Mike Magursky from Code for America and Eric Gunderson from Mapbox will be 2 of our keynote speakers. We're working on a 3rd keynote speaker right now, and we'll announce that later. After which there will be town hall meetings, panel discussions, time for exhibitors. We're going to be all together for the whole day. On Wednesday, we're going to do much more of a traditional conference breakout session. So we'll be breaking out for the morning. We'll be having sessions, everything from lightning talk sessions to 15-minute sessions to longer format sessions. And we'd really like to encourage you to get your proposals or your presentations submitted to the conference so that we can hear from you and hear from the exciting things that you're doing around the state. That day, our closing keynote speaker will be Jack Dangerman from ESRI. He's the president of the company, and he has graciously consented to join us and give us a little bit of his thoughts as we close the conference up. That evening, we're looking at having an event for those people who want to hang around, a little bit of hacking, a little bit of socializing, and it sounds like it's going to be a great time. As I mentioned, a couple of deadlines. First of all, there's the call for presentations, which is going to be taking place, or it's closing on December 15th, 2013. We'd really like you to get your stuff in for that so we can put the program together and shortly after the first of the year be able to have a rough idea of the whole content of the conference up online so that all of you can look at and see what you would be registering for and what you'll be able to see at that conference. Early registration ends on December 31st, 2013. After that, the conference costs go up by $100. So once again, encourage you to get on top of these things and get your information in, get registered up for the conference, and come and join us to have a great time. Monterey promises to be a great conference this year. This is our 20th anniversary. And now, with that, I'm going to end this PowerPoint presentation and bring in our first guest. And let's see if this works and opens up right now. You there? Ah, there he is. So I'd like to welcome Scott Gregory. We're going to ask him a little bit about himself as we go along. So let me open up my questions here. Everybody got to see a flash of my questions on the screen there for a moment. So welcome today. Sorry we missed you last week ago or 10 days ago or whatever it was.
Yeah, I apologize for that, but I'm glad to be here with you today.
Oh, great. Yeah, those kinds of things happen. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself to start with, your background in GIS, kind of how you got into the position you're in now.
Sure. Be happy to. So I've been involved in GIS, going on about, well, I'd say about 18 years now. Originally, gosh, going way back, seems a long time, had always a strong interest in understanding the relationships between things that I would see. Even as a kid, I would look out and wonder, why is there water there? Why is that mountain there? And it led me ultimately to my undergraduate education in geography, and ultimately into GIS. I thought that GIS was a magnificent tool for helping us understand how our world really works. And it led from an internship in GIS all the way to the position I'm in now as the state's Geographic Information Officer. I think that journey has been a very interesting one, starting from coming in as an intern with the County of Sacramento, learning the very basics, all the way through morphing my career path from very technical in terms of database and programming and analytics into more of an administrative and management-related role. I always knew I would end up going that direction, but it happened a little sooner than I thought. But I'm really excited about the promise that this position holds, and I think some of the things that we can do for California are exciting coming up in the future.
Fantastic. Well, speaking of California, maybe the next question, or the great question for you is, how is GIS moving forward in use in state government? And
good question.
maybe what initiatives you've been working on. I know you've been in the position for a few years now.
Yeah, just shy of 3 years. It'll be 3 years in January. Well, you know, in terms of GIS, GIS has been, as a discipline, as a science, as a technology, has been utilized within the state of California for probably, well, not probably, certainly over 2 decades, pushing 30 years, and a lot of data development has occurred in that time frame, and mission critical applications are tied directly to geospatial technologies, whether it's a geocoding application or a mapping application that informs the public of impending danger of a fire approaching a community, or flood stage monitoring. There's a lot of different ways in which geospatial technology is being used, but more specifically in terms of where we see some of this technology moving is around focused applications that answer very specific questions for our constituents. And that constituency can be comprised of, the way I typically try to coin it is in three ways: government, citizens, and business. Our first responsibility, of course, is to the citizens of California and delivering them value-added technologies to help support decisions that they have to make every day. Very simple, as I give you an example of one that we just released in partnership with the Board of Equalization. This is an application for businesses to be able to determine what their accurate tax rate is. A lot of businesses, as we know, aren't always brick and mortar. Many of them are online businesses, and being able to accurately determine what their tax rate is has been a bit of a challenge. But when we use geographic query and analysis to be able to determine that, I mean, for us, and as you and I talk, this is a pretty simple thing, right? It's a geocode. It's finding what our tax rate is, return that tax rate, and everybody's happy. But to folks that aren't as versed as the community I think we're speaking to today, that's kind of magical to them, to be able to take a map, something that they're very familiar with, whether it's a Google map or an Esri-based map or even a Microsoft map, and put that kind of functionality into it to answer a quick and very, very important question to them has been an interesting exercise in not trying to give them the kitchen sink, but build them something very focused. So that's our charge, and that's our movement, at least from my office, and a lot of the engagement I'm doing directly with the governor's office lately has been around focused applications to answer complex questions in very simple and intuitive and easy ways.
That's something that I found as I left county government and came over to agriculture. It's the same kind of issue is really out there. Is providing simple answers to people who don't think GIS to start with. They need an answer to a very specific set of questions. So,
right.
Here's another question for you. I think that's kind of come up over the years. I know you came and visited with us in 2011 at the CalGIS conference in Fresno.
Right.
And maybe now that you have a little more time with this, what do you see as the relationship between GIS at the state level and GIS at the county and city levels of government within the state? And maybe to extend that a little bit, between state level and the private sector?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So naturally, this is one that I've been drawn to, and throughout my career, I began at local level with County of Sacramento, moved to the federal government, worked for the feds for a while, moved from the feds and worked for the private sector. So and then on to the state. So I think I have a really, at least I think, a good understanding of needs at those different levels. But in particular, the needs of this relationship and building these bridges between the local and state entities is extremely important to me. I know that a lot of times at the local level, the state will make demands. Hey, give us this, give us that data, we need this. But what do the locals get in return? Oftentimes it's a one-way street. And we know, especially in the work that we do, analyzing geographies, understanding geographic relationships, they don't stop at jurisdictional boundaries. Oftentimes they begin at the local level. So collaboration and cooperation from the local side all the way to the state is important. And the way I see that happening is for us to begin to develop partnerships in information sharing that go both ways, technology sharing that goes both ways. We just released the state's GeoPortal. I don't know if folks can see on the screen here. This wasn't on purpose, but there's a link there, and that goes to the state's GeoPortal. Now, the state's GeoPortal is a mechanism for us and a methodology for us to be able to collect and catalog metadata about important data that you want to share with each other or with the public the best data always originates at the local level, and we want to, at least this next coming year, I know I'm going to be doing a big push to start to collaborate with our local partners, whether that's councils of governments, cities, or counties or nonprofits. I really want to see a stronger relationship in building that bridge to start to share this information. I think that's one place we can have a lot of success to not only serve the citizens of the state, but to serve each other and help each other along. Along with the GEO portal, there are tools there for locals to be able to access and leverage. For instance, there's metadata cataloging tools within it. We're also in the process of releasing we call it our statewide service offering for GIS. So local entities that don't have GIS infrastructure, budget to support that, or even personnel to support that, we're offering a service offering at the state at a greatly reduced cost to be able to support entities that want to disseminate geographic information over the web or leverage our statewide geocoder. That's really nice, and we're always improving it, as well as some of our consulting services that we have here too. So we have expertise on staff to be able to develop web applications and other things like that for entities, local and not local, that have that need. And you also mentioned the private sector. I think there's a huge role for the private sector. I mean, if you think about it, think about the big players in GIS and I guess geographic analysis and data management in the state. What state do they come from, right? Okay, we have, obviously, the obvious one is Esri. Esri's been around 40+ years, out of Redlands, California. We have Google. Google is an up-and-coming player that, well, since 2005 has grown exponentially in terms of how their technology is being leveraged. I know for a fact that Google Earth has been downloaded 1 billion with a B unique times worldwide. That's a lot. That's a lot. So what we want to do is open up the sandbox to have room for all these different folks to play in. You know, traditionally, Esri's been the tool set that a lot of folks do for the analytics and data management and visualization, but we also see there's an ever-increasing role for folks to use tools that they use on a daily basis, like a Google Maps, like Bing Maps, and some of these open source technologies. My goal really is to get data open and available to be leveraged in whatever technology folks want to use, and it's the right tool for the right job. So I invite, you know, the open source community and the vendor community outside of that to come in and see what we're doing, because I think that there's some partnerships we could build and tell a really good technology story for the state.
Fantastic. Yeah, in fact, that's one of the things we're looking at a little bit more at this conference. Our keynote speaker that we didn't say his name is from Google, who's very involved with their Google Map Engine stuff. Mm-hmm. That hasn't been confirmed finally yet, but you know, that involvement plus the open source community that we're talking about. You know, there's I think a lot of room for various partners to come together here.
I agree.
In fact, that's one of the reasons why, as a conference, why we're really looking to try to expand the base of the conference out to, let me get rid of that little pop-up on my screen there, try to expand the base of the conference out from simply a kind of our traditional place that we've been in for the last 20 years, right, to farther and farther reach out to those people who, you know, and not only the vendors, the technologists who are doing this, but all the users who, there's a broad base of users out there that we can invite to participate with us, and I think that could be a great opportunity.
Absolutely.
So,
I think it's great.
Okay, here's the next question is, what types of GIS tools are used in state government, and has there been much work in the development of mobile data tools, or kind of geospatial on the go kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, that's a really big question. there's a lot of GIS tools used in the state. Just to give you a flavor of, at least for the state of California proper, what our GIS landscape looks like, there's over 90 organizations in the state that actively leverage the use of geospatial technology in one form or another. We have many organizations that are very well advanced and have been entrenched and ingrained in the technology for decades. And then we have some that are just coming online. So, you know, the use cases range from public safety to health and human services to water resources management and conservation, kind of the traditional areas in which GIS was born. But we're starting to see this really interesting groundswell of interest in, as I alluded to earlier, applications that are extremely focused. And the delivery methodologies that we're starting to employ are around mobile technologies. So, for example, the state of California released a mobile gallery. Now, within this mobile gallery are many applications that are driven by, I call them the where questions. Where is this? How far am I from? We have some, like, I can give you an example, a farmer's market application. Wonderful idea, but where do we pull the data? So we pulled information from Department of Food and Agriculture, geocoded it, and built it into a mobile web app that folks can use on a Android phone, on a mobile phone, iPhone, Windows Mobile, to be able to determine their location, and from their location, how close are they to a farmer's market. Very focused, very simple, but incredibly impactful. I see mobile computing really is the next paradigm in computing. We all, I shouldn't say we all, but the majority of us have cell phones. A segment of those are smartphones. Within a smartphone, you have a GPS that the device is locationally aware. We are looking at beginning to develop a lot of applications that are accessible via the smartphone, because that's honestly where the next generation is going to look for computing, and we want to be out ahead of that. So we do have the state's mobile template, which takes advantage of mapping capabilities from GPS and also utilizes a Google base map. We deliver a lot of our map services as WMS and also as a companion, a KML, so we can bring that into, like, for example, the Google Maps API to be able to read state data from authoritative sources into a mobile application that's easily understood by most folks. So more and more mobile development is going to happen. I think a lot more in the field data collection realm. I think also a lot more in the government service realm, where we're providing service directly to the citizen. DMV is an excellent example. What's my nearest DMV and what's the wait time there? It's a location-based question that we're starting to drive answers towards. Another one that's really interesting, the last one that I'll share with you, is Department of Food and Ag has developed something called Report a Pest. So if you're a farmer or an agriculturalist and you're seeing a bug, you don't know what it is, you can snap a picture of it. It takes the GPS coordinate, you write a description, it sends it to the entomologists at Food and Ag, helps them determine, okay, is this a problem, invasive species? Should we set a quarantine out? What should we do? I can see that could be important for the work you do, Jeff. But really a driven application around specific problems. You know, if you go back to the old days when GIS started going out on the web, a lot of applications were developed, and I was absolutely guilty of this. You'd put in every tool known to man, and you'd say, hey, go for it, here you go, this is fun, this is great. To you and I, it made a lot of sense, but to the consumer who didn't do GIS or didn't work in geography as a job, and they just wanted a quick answer, that's all they wanted, it wasn't very useful. So, again, this trend of moving towards things that are focused and really cutting out a lot of the stuff that we don't need, the clutter, is a move, and mobile is going to help us get there.
That's very interesting. You know, I've been doing GIS stuff for 25 years or so, and things have changed dramatically. Yeah. You know, the days when you used to walk in and see the dark room with the big monitors and the guys in their flannel shirts in there, slaving away over their Unix workstations, and right. The fact that we're moving to this this application-driven, this specific function world, I can't tell whether I'm going to look at you on the screen or look at you in the camera here. So, so this very specific world, it's really opened things up a great deal. But yeah. One of the things I've found, and I don't know if you're finding the same thing, is we end up with people who get in these tools, they start becoming geospatially aware, and then they start hitting up against the limitations of those tools. Right. And they want more. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a trade-off that I found when I was working in county government. If you give somebody something very focused, they start stretching the limits of that and they want more.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a trade-off and a balance between this of very focused and this world of kind of providing GIS light to them. And so
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I
I
don't know if
think
you have the same problem. So
we do, but and I don't think that problem's ever going to go away. It's kind of like you know, you give one thing that's really interesting, then they're curious to see what's coming next.
mm-hmm.
You know, one way that we've been able to tackle that is really focusing on what their need is. What's the driving need behind the need they're asking? Where do they want to go, and try to project the steps going forward. It's not always easy, I can assure you that, but yeah, that's one way. It's a good place to be in when a customer comes back wanting more.
Wanting more, that's true. Well, maybe this is a good point then to ask the next question. Oh, by the way, yes, up here on the wall behind me, you can see that pests are a big deal. I know this year we've had a bunch of the Asian citrus and quarantines being slapped up and the whole 9 yards. So just the very idea that you can keep a better better eye on that stuff, get citizens reporting back is a wonderful thing. How do you see GIS technology evolving in the future, or from where we are now? There's been a lot of change over the past 20 years, and things are moving forward at a breakneck pace. So where do you kind of see things going from your position, where you're being exposed to a lot of different stuff around you?
Right. Wow, another really broad question, but very good, very good. I'll see if I can answer it.
See, broad questions are good because that gives you a chance to answer whatever you want to answer, right?
Right. Well, certainly we talked about mobile computing. That's what we know for the foreseeable future things are going to start moving towards. Again, to beat the term down even more, focused applications and moving in that direction. But there's something lurking out behind us, not physically behind us here, but in the background. It's this idea of, and it's cliche now, like saying cloud, but it's big data and what we want to do around big data. Heavy BI or business intelligence applications, I believe, are going to spawn and drive more geographic analysis. Think about it. Most all government-related information has a geographic component to it, whether we're measuring where EBT cards are going out and what population is being served by those, or where fires are occurring and the populations that are impacted, even the vegetation and animal life that are impacted by those. Data is being collected time and time and time again, over and over and over again. And how do we distill this information into usable, tangible ways in which we can drive intelligent decision making? My thought is, and we're starting to see this with some of the work that I'm engaged in with the governor's office, is this notion of big data and how we funnel it down into something that's digestible. An area that we've had a lot of success so far is being able to draw this back to a picture. We all know that a picture can tell 1,000 words. But taking this data that is geographic in nature, drawing it down into a way that's understandable, looking at patterns and trends in information graphically, being able to develop dashboards that are linked to geographic information so that organizations can, in other words, take the temperature of their organization, or politicians can understand their constituencies and understand really what's happening on the ground from their phone or from their iPad or tablet. It's really, really exciting, and geography and GIS is at the center of the big data question. It's the one element that I believe flattens the playing field and normalizes the way in which we interact with the information, because all of us, whether we understand it or recognize it, relate to things in geographic terms. Where are we? How far are we from? How close are we to? Those things are germane to all of us, so being able to provide a context of that as our basis, along with being able to analyze intelligence and information and display it on a map is really intriguing. And I believe that's going to happen more and more, especially in state government. From where I sit, I'm seeing it in action daily. And my office in particular has been engaged quite a bit on the big data question and how the state moves forward on it. And I'm happy to at least report that GIS and geography and displaying and depicting that information is at the center of that conversation. So there's going to be a lot more to come in that regard.
Okay, fantastic. It's very interesting. I know that that business intelligence world is something that I sometimes think that when I'm looking here at our company, for example, we're running into the time where being able to understand huge quantities of data that we generate and just internally with our own organization is, has become more and more important for decision making, for keeping your budget on track, for productivity, for outreach. It's become huge. We're doing a little bit with it ourselves too. So, and I can't imagine the scale that you're talking about. I'm dealing with 50,000 acres or something like that.
That's still a lot of data.
A lot of oranges, let's put it that way. Okay. Here's the next question. As the lead for GIS for such a large and diverse organization, you've been kind of talking a little bit about this, about what trends in geospatial look promising to you, but which do you see as being the most disruptive, and which do you see kind of reinforcing the status quo? That's I know a broad question again, but one of the things I really was trying to look at with CalGIS conference coming up is that there are a lot of disruptive things happening in the geospatial world. For those of us who came up sitting behind their desktop computer doing GIS all day long, grabbing a big data set and pounding it with a hammer to make it fit the problem we have. We're getting into a world where things are just moving so fast, so much change going on, this disruptive innovation that's happening. And so I wanted to try to see if you have an idea which things you see coming up are very supportive of or taking advantage of some of those trends, and which are supportive of more of a traditional kind of GIS world.
Yeah, great question. So, I'm starting to see a bit of a paradigm shift in terms of how geographic information science, at least in the state, is changing. We've seen this huge influx of application development, and not specifically to the desktop, but to the mobile arena occurring. And what's been disruptive about that is, just like you, I've been in GIS for quite some time, and yeah, I was that guy in that dark room with a flannel shirt on coding things. But that's not GIS anymore. It's really not. I think those days of the highly specialized individual that did one thing and one thing only, in my opinion, at least, what I'm seeing is those days are a little bit numbered because of the diversity of clients that can consume this kind of information, the broad landscape of how we can approach delivering geographic information to people has changed, dramatically over the last 5 years. And I'm excited about it because it is disrupting the status quo. It's moving us out of this cute little technology that's done in the background, which we all know the power of it, but it's starting to expose it more and more to the mainstream. I talked about earlier Google and their prevalence in the marketplace. Google and Google Maps has done a tremendous service to GIS as a profession. It has literally put mapping in GIS in the hands of billions of people. It's impressive. Now, would we have the same conversation 10 years ago? Probably not. But that's the beauty of this. It's moving, it's progressing, and the proliferation of this kind of technology is starting to really get quite a bit of a groundswell, not only in the mobile arena, but also in the application development circles. There's some great groups out there like Code for America that do tremendous work with some of the basis of their work being tied to geographic data, driving towards geographic questions and providing answers to those questions. It's disruptive in a great way. You're taking folks that are from different disciplines like computer science, computer engineering, business, art, anthropology, other arenas that are bringing that knowledge together, utilizing geographic information systems as a tool to drive innovation in their disciplines. That blows my mind. I mean, it's refreshing to see it, because in a way it kind of demystifies the GIS specialist. I mean, they're very special. we're all special in the work we do, and I want to qualify that. I think it's important, all the work that GIS folks do. But what's great is that it's exposing this technology to more folks. I guess that's what I mean by that. And it's making the work that we do so much more relevant in the eyes of organizations and individuals in a position to make decisions for governments, for businesses, for civic groups. It's really a neat time, and I think, to me, if I were to come into this discipline new, where I would look to start kind of getting a foothold in the industry is broaden my view past what we learn in the geography textbooks, broaden my view past what we learn in some of these focused GIS classes, and start to open it up to how we engage in the work we do every day. They're all geographic questions begging for a geographic answer, and I think we can deliver those answers in novel and interesting ways by developing ways in which we can disseminate this information, this technology more so. And that's where I'm seeing the status quo start to kind of go to the side, and we're starting to see this new influx of folks that kind of grew up using these as a computer, really changing and revolutionizing the way in which we engage this kind of information.
That's very interesting. I know that just in my life, seeing the generational thing between myself and my children, I've got my first cell phone, actually my first smartphone, within the last 5 or 6 years to consume this information. Yeah. A generation down, my children don't watch TV. They consume media. They consume where they're going, what they're doing on computers, on tablets, on phones. And so there's a whole generational shift that's able to provide these opportunities for people to be locationally aware, even when they don't understand the geography behind it.
Right.
But maybe a follow-up. How do you see, as far as, if you would say, percentages or where you see things right now, the number of people that you see needing kind of the traditional hardcore geoprocessing, big piles of data kind of stuff, versus the people who just need simple location-based answers?
It's tough to put a percentage to that, I think, because it's such a broad community of users on either side. I know in the state of California there are organizations that base a lot of their operations off of the hardcore geoprocessing, analytic data management, visualization piece. That's the sweet spot of GIS. If you look at GIS, you want to look to begin to define it. It has a few components. One is the ability to visualize information. The other is to analyze that information. The other is to manage that geographic data or that information in different ways. We know geographic data is an interesting animal. It's not. It has its own special characteristics. Again, preaching to the choir, but that's what differentiates it. Now, there is a community that's based solely on developing and building things towards that vein. But what I'm seeing more and more, if we look over the walls of government, they don't really care about that at all, really. They don't care that you wrote a really cool Python script that does, these appends and calculates fields and does all that. They just want an answer. And also, coming back into the yard of government and looking around, decision makers don't really care about that either. They care about getting an answer that's going to make them more efficient, that's going to make them more cost effective, and is going to make them, or rather put them in a better position to serve their constituencies. So, to put a percentage to it, it's tough. But I will say this, that growing community of users is not in that traditional role. the folks building the really high-end analytical frameworks, that's absolutely needed and has to be there. That's the foundation for what we do. But the larger group that's consuming this information are becoming more geographically literate and are asking for more information that we have to begin to start investigating ways to provide to them that's efficient and meets their needs. You know, I heard a colleague say to me the other day, you know, we should deliver applications that meet people's needs in terms of how they live and how they work. So essentially, when they are out not working and they're accessing applications, mapping applications that are easy to use, let's say they're looking for a restaurant on a Saturday to go on a date, I want them to work the way they live. I want it that easy for people to be able to access information and get a quick answer. And I'm finding that, at least in my office with my group, we're starting to move our thought processes not around the technical edge of things, but more towards, well, how would that individual want to access this information and what would they be looking for? Again, going back to that analogy of giving them the kitchen sink, those days are done. We want to give them something very, very appropriate for the questions that they have.
Then maybe this is a good question to kind of wrap things up with. I put down, this is the last question that I had put down on the list of things I told you I was going to talk about. Sure. You just mentioned about this change going on.
Yeah.
So one of the things we're trying to do this year is we're trying to talk at the conference about the issue of coming into the workforce in geospatial technologies, whether it's coming in at the very beginning, you're just going to school, you're trying to figure out where you're going, or you're transitioning into these things later in life. So the question is, what do you think, or where do you see the skill sets and the development needing to, well, what should people acquire as skills as they're looking towards getting into this rapidly changing field? We've had other speakers on in previous webinars that have kind of given their opinion on how that should go, and you're kind of seeing where you think things should be focused in the educational and the training world across the state of California.
Well, I mean, very good question. Something that I've always thought about. I've wondered, and I mentioned it earlier, if I were to come back into this game, what skills would I have wanted to acquire prior to setting my foot into this world? Certainly an analytical mind is key. Curiosity. Now, these are the soft skills, right? These aren't things that you're going to learn in a textbook or in an academic setting. One other that I think is paramount is the ability to communicate complex ideas and information in very simple ways. I think we can't, as GIS professionals, continue to talk in our own lingo and expect to progress our science. We can't talk about cadastral mapping and topologic relationships between entities and blah, 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 right? Yeah, we get that, To folks that are not in the circles we run with, we might as well be speaking an entirely different language. In a way, we are. So I think being able to communicate complexities in simple ways that are easily digestible and understandable by folks that will be your customers in the future is extremely important. To me, at least in my role, it's as important as my technical background. I put a lot of credence on how to communicate and engage customers on a level that they are not intimidated by the technology, but that they can understand what the outcome will be in ways that make sense to them. Now, academically, it depends on the path you want to go. From a technical perspective, I think there's many different disciplines you can go into to start a career in GIS. I don't believe you have to go the traditional route like I did. I have an undergraduate degree in geography. That was right for me. That made a lot of sense. But, computer science, computer engineering, geology, hydrology, any of the natural sciences, they use GIS as a tool to be employed in the work that they do. What I can say, though, is regardless of where you go, having a strong foundation in how the technology interacts, how it works, and then specializing more so in specific areas. Three I can think of right at the top of my head. Programming, database management, or mobile application development. You know, one thing that I realized really quick when I got out of school was that I wasn't all that special. I didn't have any specialized skills that would differentiate me in the workplace from the next Joe that was applying for this job. Thankfully, through the School of Hard Knocks, I went through and I acquired these skills on my own. I learned how to program. I taught myself several languages. I learned database administration. I did, a lot of that on my own, but I took the initiative to do it on my own. It wasn't something that I was taught in an academic setting. But having a specialty, having the ability to differentiate yourself from the next individual that might be in line for a position that you're going for is a good thing because the job market is awfully competitive. And then deciding, do you want to stay in a technical track? For me, I didn't decide to do that. I knew I would be technical for an amount of time, but I also wanted to move more into the administrative, consultative, and managerial roles that GIS professionals fill. So I furthered that and went on into graduate school. I ended up getting an MBA, and it's been invaluable for me to understand the business side and how that applies to the technical realm. And being able to bridge those two gaps, you can't put a price on that. It's incredibly important to be able to understand the business climate along with the technology environment to be able to derive and deliver those solutions. So, I can only speak from my experience, but to me it was a question of when you come into this field, you need to make a determination of how you want to be special within it, how you want to specialize, where you want to move, and where you want to go. And, there's a tactical and a strategic view. Short term is, I want to get these skill sets, I want to be technical, but, maybe 10, 15 years down the line, maybe that's not where I want to be. Maybe I know enough in this area and I want to move into something else. Don't close the door on that administrative managerial role because it needs technically competent professionals to be able to proliferate and move this kind of technology forward. So that would be my advice, a little bit long-winded, but for folks coming right in, I think it's wide open. To share a real quick statistic, I heard the other day that 30% of web searches are geographic in nature. That means that they start with a map for their web searches. That's really telling to me. That tells me that 30% of that audience is interested in using a map first to go and get their information. They're asking location-based questions through a browser to drive results. That, to me, opens up a whole entire world of possibility for GIS professionals and like-minded folks to get engaged in this kind of technology and start perhaps taking a career path this way. There's a lot of opportunity, and I would encourage folks to specialize in certain areas and just always remember that communication is an absolute key in the success of moving career and moving this kind of technology forward as I see it.
Well, fantastic. Well, those are very interesting answers to those questions. I do appreciate you participating with us this time.
Sure.
I hope that you and some of your people from the state are able to come out to the CalGIS conference this year.
Yeah, I plan on attending.
Okay, we look forward to it. Do you have any final things that you'd like to share, or anything? Make a pitch for your portal there in the back, or anything like that you'd like to share?
Well, a couple of things. Jeff, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come on and talk with you today. I really appreciate it. It's always great to get together and reach such a broad audience as at least the attendeeship of CalGIS will bring. I think one thing I'd like to share, at least with the state, is in 2014 we're going to be making a much stronger push towards, and I mentioned this a bit earlier, to state and local collaboration. I'm going to be hitting the road a lot, going out and sharing with different entities throughout the state about some of the tools that are available, at least being provided through my office, and some of the opportunities for us to collaborate and work together towards really advancing and moving this technology forward, even more than it has been. I see the future being extremely promising for GIS professionals, and it's just real exciting to be part of it. So I look forward to hopefully working with folks that will be listening in on this and engaging with you later in the coming year. So until then, thank you very much, and I guess we'll talk soon.
Yes, we'll talk soon. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn off your webcam now and let you go. And I'm going to do a little bit of work I have to do before the next part of this webinar shows up online. So
okay.
Have a great time. I hope to see you at the conference. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
So for everybody else who's around now, or if you are watching this, this will be part 1 of the CalGIS webinar number 3. The second part of the webinar will be online also, and this may be tagged on to the beginning of it as well as the end of this one. When we talked to the people from Genie, Peter Mason, I guess, when we spoke with him and his team, it was a very interesting webinar, but one of the things that happened was my microphone did not pick up my voice. So I'm going to trim that down and take out all of the times that I spoke with them, so you'll just be seeing their presentation. And if it seems a little weird that maybe they're pausing or something's happening along the way, just understand that it was a technical error on my part using some new software that we're trying to do for these webinars. Anyway, thank you so much for participating in this webinar.